Hi, I'm Kelly at Book and Paper Arts, and today I have a process video showing how I made this art journal layout, going from blank page to finished page. I'm going to talk about some fun and funky watercolor painting, mark making with water-soluble stencils and a surprise found art supply, and collage, ideas about where to put your elements on the page. This is a long video, so I have added chapter headings in the progress bar. That's where you sometimes drag your mouse forward. It's called scrubbing. If you want to go forward, skip ahead in the video. With these chapter headings, these captions, it will pop up from time to time telling you what's happening in the video, which, if you want to skip ahead, will help give you some context. If you like journal arts, altered books, collage, and vintage books and paper, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on the notifications, and you will have more of them in your life. When I work in an altered book, I use original paper ephemera, not copies. I also spend a lot of time on a layout. It could be an afternoon, it can be 2 or 3 days. That's because once it's down, it's staying down. So I have to be very fastidious and careful. But when I work in my art journal, this is just for me. It's not for sale, so the stakes are a lot lower, and there's just not the same pressure. I use I sometimes use originals, but I also use photocopies, printables, pieces from magazines, a lot of pieces from the scrap box, and calendars, and things like this. Cheaper pieces. And what I do is I just start and I add layers and I add messes and I just let the page build itself. If something isn't feeling right, then I just add some more drizzles and layers and let it go where it's going to go. Well, I don't like to say that I'm playing. That's just not one of my things, but I am learning. Everything that goes into here, for better or for worse, teaches me something that I can then take to my real work, my altered books. I don't really like to start with a blank page. So I have added some text. These are just dictionary pages that I have glued down. Now, I know that I want to go over here with either this collaged on or I might paint one on. I haven't decided yet. Really, when I'm making these, it's very loose. But since I'm pretty sure I'm going to anchor this with yellow, because I just need yellow, I'm going to come over to this side of the piece and add some collage-y mess. I have a book with pages of wildflowers, and I use these a lot. I went through the book and I found one that had some yellow flowers. I trimmed the piece to the size of the width of the paper, and now I'm just going to go in and rough tear asymmetrically, leaving in as many of the yellow buds as I can. And I can either anchor that in the corner, or I think I'm actually going to pull it a little bit so there's some text there. This is in place. Now I'm going to take this fragment that's left over, and I think I'm going to add a little bit over here. So again, I'm just rough tearing. This time I'm going horizontally. I'm sorry, vertically rather than diagonally. And I don't want to put it too far over here because then it's just going to, actually that looks pretty good. But I'm still going to go ahead and bring it over here. And so we're starting to build some pattern and some themes and some layers. I'm going to glue that down using acrylic gel medium, but you could also use a PVA or a craft glue, or what you will. I think you could even use a glue stick. Yeah, there we go. A little bit more asymmetry there. Otherwise, it was going to be close to being in the middle of the page. That's a little too matchy-matchy. So that's why I went ahead and pulled that over here. My next layer is going to be with gesso. I'm going to apply it using a card, just like this. I am not going for full coverage. I'm just bouncing it in a little bit here and there. This is doing a couple of things. It's adding some nice, grungy, fun mess. And that adds texture to the page and interest to the eye. And as I said, a layer. Another thing it's going to do is give me that antique fresco peeling wallpaper look that I love so much, that I go for in almost all of my pieces. That's better. I didn't mean to cover him up quite so much. So I'm just pulling that away with a damp kitchen towel. Another thing it's going to let me do is I'm going to go here with the gesso on the edges. And that lets me push this piece, these collaged pieces, back into the paper a little bit. It conceals those lines. So it's not so much cut, 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 cut. Now it's turning into one more of a cohesive whole. Do the same thing over here. Just blend out those lines. Add a little mystery and fun. Finally, it's also adding some contrast so that when I do start drawing or collaging and adding more elements, it's going to make them pop a little bit. Now I'm going to add some mark making. Usually I do that at the end of a piece for embellishing, but I think it needs another layer over this expanse before I start adding some of the focal points. I'm going to start with this thing. I don't know what this thing is called. I got it at Poundland and the kitchen section. And Poundland's kind of like a dollar store. Everything is a pound. And I think this came in a big sheet. And I think it was meant to be some kind of a splatter guard over a skillet or a barbecue. And I cut mine into smaller pieces. Now I'm going to just give it a squirt of water with my spritzer. Not a whole lot. And I'm going to use a water-soluble crayon. You could use any water-soluble ink tent sticks or graphite sticks. But I'm just coloring irregularly over this with this kind of marigold color. And I'm going to spritz it again to activate the color. Go over here. And I'm not going to rub it like I do when I do mark making with the chalk pastel. Just want to press it into place. And now I have this nice, messy pattern there. See why I love it so much? So I'm just going to put a little bit of it over here. I'm going to go more yellow over here using this stencil. It's from Tim Holtz. It's a kind of a sort of a honeycomb thingy. And it's the same idea though. I'm going to give it a spritz to get it damp. And then this is a Derwent Inktense stick. It's water soluble. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to color, color, color. Nice, generous. And just give it a slight tap of water to activate it a little more. And now go down here. Now it's time to add this focal point and start building the page around it. I have just started working with painting in watercolors. I know that I use watercolors a lot in my illustrated journals and videos about those techniques. But one of my New Year's resolutions this year was to learn to use watercolors in a more painterly way. And I'm doing a couple of courses, and I'm very happy with how it's coming along. Now, having said that, this is a page in my art journal where I can be loose and fun and not know the outcome before I begin. Because painting is new to me, I didn't want to just jump all in at once. So I did a couple of dry runs. This one I painted in a watercolor pad and then cut out, thinking that I was going to use it as a collage element. But then I thought, I wonder what it's going to look like if I actually painted onto the print. And that's what I did here. I did a dry run. Added some gesso and mark making, and then painted the flower onto the text. I also did it in pink or rose. And I'm really happy with that. It will be turning up in something else soon. Let's see how that looks. I do like that a lot. So now I feel bold enough that I can paint right on the page. But where? This is how I've blocked it. But let's say I'm going to paint it here. That's a different page. Now this is turned from a sunflower into a sun. Almost celestial. And I love celestial pieces. It would do the same over here, except now it would also interact with this collage element. If I put it here, it would bookend the piece. Everything else on the page would run up to here. And that's a good look. And if I put it down here, now it has become part of my horizon or the ground. It's as if it's coming out of the ground like some very peculiar grass. I love all of these, and it's hard to choose. So since I've already blocked this page pretty far in with it like this, there we go. I'm going to start by drawing my petals, and I'm using a fine tip marker with permanent ink. This is not water soluble because I don't want it to interact with the paint. Usually I use a fine tip pen for outlining, but I want these petals to be very bold, so I'm going with a 0.8. Well, this is a teachable moment because, as you could clearly see as I was doing this, my so-called waterproof pen did react with the watercolor and got smudgy, which was not what I intended, especially when I did a dry run. Now, I'm not sure why. As a vintage paper professional, I'm going to say this paper is more porous than this paper. So when I put down the black ink, it actually went straight into the fibers of the paper, making them less likely to be on the surface and interact with the paint. So this is the beauty of the messy, imperfect art journal, because I have learned something. If I don't want my so-called waterproof ink to move on this paper, I might want to add a layer of clear gesso and prime the page. Or I might just want to embrace this because I like it. It has drama. I was going for pretty and I got pretty and dramatic, so I'm good with that. What I'm going to do though is go back in with a finer tip pen. This is a 0.2, and just make some of those lines that got smudgy a little more distinct. Give some more definition. I'm also going to go in with some purple watercolor, and here in the middle of the petal I'm going to add dots like this for some detail. When I come back, we'll start building up the page. Here are some of the candidates for collage elements on this art journal page. This is from Mr. Marshall's flower book. A very, very imposing butterfly. Some cigarette cards that have yellow flowers, and this has a butterfly with similar colors. Smaller version. These are some bird's eggs on tracing paper, left over from another project. They were just in the scrap box, as were these. These are just like little dictionary smalls, little embellishments to some text in an old book. And I've hand tinted that. Then there are these guys. And they're just two birds from a coffee table book. I like them because they're whimsical in the first place, but then they also have the same colors. They have the green here in the tail plumage that's going to pick up the green in the foliage throughout the piece and pull the eye with the greens and also with the yellow. Yellow, 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 yellow. So they're going to hold the thing together. But where are they going to go? Now, usually I would not move my pieces, both of my focal points, in one frame, because I don't want this to be page. I want this to be one cohesive layout. But they do look really good here. And it's tempting. It would mean I need a lot over here to pull the focus, balance the focus. But what could be more look than this butterfly? He's got the greens and the yellows, and he's imposing. In fact, I could stop there and this would be a very charming layout. Do that for a little bit of movement, and it's even better because in a weird way, he's not just static, he is actually interacting with the piece. So that gives some balance, but it really is a lot. So let's try this smaller guy. Also add some balance and could easily complete the layout just like that. But let's see if we can work with these guys over here. And right away, that does make this one cohesive layout. What's going to go over here? Even the small guy is taking up too much real estate on this side. So I'm thinking, I do have this smaller guy. The colors are a little bit darker than I'd like to go with, but it is very pretty. That's tempting. That is very tempting. Now here is this flower that I fussy cut from Mr. Marshall's flower book. I'll write that down in the text underneath this in case you want to find a copy. I know that this is getting sunflower heavy, but it's spring, but it's still cold here, so I'm trying to invoke some sunshine. Join me, please. I have this little one that I hand tinted, and I could put that there. And that's going to make things a little bit more. You know what I thought when I turned it this way? It goes from just being a pretty element to actually being part of a story. And to me, the first thing I thought was that these are birds, and this is nature's microphone. And they're singing into nature's microphone, ba-ba-ba-boom, as birds do. And so now we're getting a sort of a surrealistic story. And I'm liking the balance. When in doubt, add some bird's eggs. All right, which is what I'm going to do. I'll glue this down and be right back. To finish the page, I've added some embellishing. This is with a soft chalk pastel. And what I did was I just went to the edges of these fragments and went all the way around them and outlined them with the pastel, then smudged like crazy so that it gets kind of soft and warm. And what that does, it pushes the fragment back into the page some, but it also highlights it. I'm going to take this soft chalk pastel in another color, and I'm coming over here and adding these little rays. And this is doing two things. It's pulling that teal green color from here to here. And it's also adding an element, riffing on the element of sunshine and sunbeams in the petals, and now they're going to be down here as well with this piece. I will probably work on this for some more. I sometimes work on these for weeks. It makes me happy. But I'm going to stop here and quickly show how, having tried out these techniques, loose and easy and imperfectly, making mistakes in the art journal, I was then able to take some of these techniques and add them to a layout in my new latest altered book where I don't want to make mistakes. So that way, I was just able to pull that, practice, learn, and then do it some more. If you would like to see how I'm making some of the layouts in this latest altered book, I have a link to that in the text below this video. I also have a link to some free printable scans on my website. While there, please check out my online shop and my online courses. Please join me Sunday. I'm going to have a short one-off video talking about some changes that are coming to book and paper arts and this channel. Spoiler alert, they are all good. So until Sunday, happy making.